Good morning, children. We have already completed the chapter number 1, that is reproduction in organisms. Today we will start with the second chapter, that is sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants involves transformation of diploid sporophytic cells into haploid gametophytic cells. We have already studied this in 11th standard. That is, diploid spores undergoes meiosis, that is reductional division, and produces the haploid gametophyte, okay, which in turn produces the haploid gametes. Okay, now this haploid gametes of the opposite sex which are produced will fuse and result in formation of a new structure which is diploid, and that structure is known as zygote. This zygote then develops into an embryo which ultimately forms a diploid plant body. In flowering plants, all these steps occurs within a specialized reproductive organ, and that is flower. In this chapter, we will study sexual reproduction in flowering plants, which includes the events like microsporogenesis, megasporogenesis, pollination, fertilization, embryogenesis, and seed formation. So let us start with the topic, that is flower, pre-fertilization, events and pollination. Now, all the events which occurs before the fertilization are called pre-fertilization events. मतलब जितने भी events है, जितने भी procedures है, processes है, जो मेल और फीमेल गैमेट के फ्यूजन के पहले होते हैं, उन्हें हम क्या कहेंगे? प्री फर्टिलाइजेशन इवेंट्स. Now, during this process, several hormonal and structural changes occurs which lead to the differentiation and development of floral organ, or you can say a flower. Let us study about the flower. What is a flower? It is a modified condensed shoot. You can see here. It is a modified condensed shoot which arises on the axil of a small leaf-like structure called bract and consisting of 4 holes or floral appendages which are attached on the receptacle. Of this, the 2 lower holes, that is the calyx and corolla. What is the flower? Flower is a modified shoot, as we have already studied. So, modified shoot which further develops into different floral appendages and that remains attached to the receptacle. Okay, so of this 4 holes, there are 2 lower holes which are called calyx and corolla and which are sterile, and they are considered as non-essential or accessory or helping holes. And the 2 upper holes, that is androecium and gynoecium, are fertile and considered as essential or reproductive holes. Okay, they are essential or they are called reproductive holes, and they are very important because they help in reproduction. Okay, so just now we have studied what flower is a modified shoot, right, which arises on the axil of small leaf-like structure which is called bract. Okay, and we have studied that there are 4 holes. The 2 holes, these are the lower holes. Okay, so this 2 lower holes are the calyx and corolla, And these are what? These are the sterile holes. Sterile, or you can say they are non-essential. Why? Because they do not help in reproduction. Okay, but they protect, their function is to protect the reproductive parts of the flower. Okay, now the reproductive parts of the flower are the upper holes, are the two upper holes, right? And they are what? Androecium, and the second one is gynoecium. Okay, now androecium, you can say it is the male reproductive part of the flower, and gynoecium is the female reproductive part of the flower. Okay, now let us discuss different parts of a flower in brief. Let us talk about calyx first. Calyx is the outermost part. Okay, it is the outermost and protective whole of a flower. An individual appendage of calyx is called the sepal. You can see here in the diagram. Right, so this green leaf-like structures are called the sepals. Right, so the individual appendage of calyx is called the sepal, and as I said, they are green in color. Okay, so green, leafy, and the outermost protective whole of the flower appendage is the calyx, and its single individual is the sepal. Right, then comes corolla. This is the second whole of floral appendages that arise inner to the calyx. Calyx के अंदर के part में जो arise होता है, that is called the corolla, and individual appendages of corolla are called the petals. Okay, this. Right, so petals, they are brightly colored and they have fragrance which attracts the insects for pollination. So you can say that petals or corolla helps in attraction of insects for the pollination. Now, as we have discussed, these are the two holes, that is calyx and corolla are the two holes which are sterile, means they do not help in reproduction, or they are non-essential. Again, as they do not help in reproduction, they are non-essential. Okay, but their function is to protect the inner holes. They protect androecium and gynoecium. Now let us discuss about the two essential holes or the reproductive holes of a flower, that is androecium and gynoecium respectively. Let us start with androecium first. Androecium is the male reproductive part of the flower. Okay, this is what? It is male reproductive part of the flower. And it consists of the single holes which are called the stamens, and each stamen consists of an anther, filament and a connective. It helps in the production of microspores, that is pollen grains containing male gametes within the anthered lobes. Here you can see, okay, this single part, or you can see this single part of the flower. Okay, that is what it is called, the androecium, which consists of the stamen. It consists of what? Stamen. So this you can say it is the stamen. And stamen consists of again the three parts which are called anther, filament, and the part which connects the both anther and filament is called the connective. Okay, now androecium helps in the formation of microspores, that is pollen grains containing male gamete within the lobes of the anther. Okay, so see this. This is what anther, as it is labeled here, it is what anther, and it is bilobed structure. Inside this, microspores are produced, which in turn produces the male gametes. Okay, now let us start with the last part, that is gynoecium. Gynoecium is the female reproductive hole. An individual appendage of gynoecium is called carpel, or it is called pistil. It contains three parts. Here you can see the central part is the carpel, or it is known as the pistil. Okay, so it consists of three parts. The first part is the stigma, the second part is style, and at the base the lower part is called the ovary. Okay, this part is ovary, the swollen part. Okay, and it helps in production of megaspores, fruits and seeds. Okay, so in turn this ovary contains ovules inside which the female gamete is present, that is the egg or ovum is present. Okay. Now this anther, which is bilobed structure, produces the pollen grains, as I've already told you. And pollen grains in turn contains what? It contains the male gametes. So when the pollen grains shed on the stigma, there will be germination of the pollen tube throughout the length of the style, and finally the pollen tube will enter inside the ovule where the female gamete is present. Then there will be release of the male gametes, and in turn when the male gamete is released, there will be fusion of male and female gamete, which results in formation of a new structure which is called zygote. I hope this much is clear to everyone. In our next class, we will be studying about the pre-fertilization structures and events. Till then, revise this, and I hope you have understood this topic. Thank you.